So we're going to start the live stream. It's going. Okay. All right. Still some more people to check in here. All right, well, no, I'm not gonna start yet. I got a couple of names that I do recognize here. We'll keep changing those. So are we missing Witness Stevens, or am I just not seeing the name?
I don't see him on there. If he's there, please, Bob, reach out and let us know. I've emailed him, Your Honor. He was in contact with me 5 minutes ago, so I'm sure he's joining.
All right. Okay, so the people I don't have designated yet, Jay Miller and Flood C. So this is a hearing for both the parties and members of the public, and we are going to do members of the public first, at least give them a chance to comment. So if anyone connected is a member of the public and wishes to speak, just let me know.
Your Honor, this is Brian Knapp. I'm Jay Miller is Jennifer Miller with SMU, and
Okay.
she's observing.
Okay. Thank you. How about Flood C? Anyone connected to that?
Your Honor, that's Carolyn Flood. She is with Arrowcast.
Okay. That's probably safe to put it that way. All right. And an RRS, member of the public or party?
Hi, this is Robert Stevens. I'm a
Oh.
witness on behalf of Verocast.
Great, thanks. Oops. And Mike Long just joined us, or is joining us. Does anyone recognize that name before the connection comes through?
Yes, he's attorney for Little Rapids.
Oh, okay. Oh, what do you know? Yeah. Okay, great. So it looks like the entries to the Zoom hearing are slowing down a little bit. So just want to double check any members of the public in attendance at this time. Okay, So just so you know, before we start, this is a public and a party session, so I'll make an opportunity for public comments at the beginning. We'll move on to the parties and then we'll open up for public comment at the end. I think we're all set. I feel like there's one last button I need to push, but I can't figure out what it is at this point. Okay, so. Yeah, I think so. All right, so let's get on the record. Welcome, everyone. This is docket 5350 ER 112, the application of the city of Shawano for authority to adjust electric rates. This is Mike Newmark, the administrative law judge for the PSC. We are connected through Zoom, and we have parties, commission staff, and possibly a member of the public in attendance. This is a party and public hearing session, so we did make the connection to Zoom available to parties and public. I do want to make an opportunity for the public to comment now. So if there are any members of the public in attendance that wish to make a comment, please unmute and let us know. Okay, no, not hearing anybody. So I did want to mention that we are accepting public comments in writing. They need to be received no later than Tuesday, December 6th. And they can be filed on the commission's website or sent to us by US mail. Details for that are on the notice of hearing. And at this time, I'm seeing no public comments on file. And I believe we can move on to the party session at this time. So we have the service list on the screen, and let's do appearances. So just take the list alphabetically here with Arrowcast. So who's representing Arrowcast?
Eric Callisto, Your Honor.
Okay, Citizens Utility Board.
Good morning, Your Honor. Kara Coburn Ferris for the Citizens Utility Board.
Okay, so just off the record for a second. So your mic is a little low. I don't know if there's, just want to get closer to it. You haven't had a problem with that before. So.
Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. I'll clear that while I'm off mic. And is this better?
That's better, yes. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Back on. Little Rapids Corporation, who is representing that?
Michael Long from Hush Blackwell. Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning. Public Service Commission.
I'm sorry, Sophia Rogers for the Public Service Commission.
Thanks. Shawano Municipal Utilities.
Good morning, Your Honor. Justin Chasko from Frederickson and Byron. Just want to note on that list, my email address is out of date. And then we also have Brian Knapp and, as Brian mentioned earlier, Jennifer Miller in attendance from the utility.
From utility. Oh, maybe I messed that up. Hang on.
And Jennifer, I don't believe, has appeared and doesn't need to appear on the service list.
Okay. So, yeah, that's fine. If you'd like to change your email address, please file a notice of appearance, and I'll do that. And I'll make that change to your, not being too technical, but our master list. So all the service lists you're on will reflect that change.
Yeah, we filed a notice in September that has it. You might recall we had erroneously listed it, or perhaps erroneously listed it as correspondence, but it is in the record. We could refile it under the intervention request if you would like.
That's all right. I'll look. It's in this docket.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. I'll take a look at that. Okay. So you hadn't had trouble receiving filings, have you?
No, I think for the most part, folks have gotten the correct message. So
I have not. So
you haven't sometimes. Sometimes.
Oh, really? I wonder how that works. Okay, maybe it was changed in some dockets and not others. I don't know how that would be, but okay. Well, let's move on. So Wisconsin Paper Council, we have them present. I haven't seen them yet. we do have a filing that needs to be verified by WPC. Okay, all right, well, if they're not here, we can't accept it. So, all right, so we have the parties in attendance verified here. So I think our next step is to look at the offered evidence list. Just going to switch our view of the screen. I sent out 2 versions. You notice that. I'm sure that there's a PDF version and a Word version, just so you could get a view of all the comments. As they pile up, they get truncated on the PDF. And if you create a PDF that provides a list at the back with all the extra words, it kills the links. So I provided both versions, so you can have the links and the full comment list. So just for preliminary matter, just curious if there are mistakes on the list in terms of the documents referenced, or if there's any documents I'm missing.
Your Honor, this is Eric Callisto. I don't see any mistakes per se, but as I mentioned in my pre-hearing filings yesterday, we do have what I fashioned as an exhibit for witness Stevens. It is a small amount of discovery that we received from SMU. We do have consensus of the parties. I received Cub's agreement as well on that today. So I did fashion it as Stevens for, as I mentioned, it is discovery from SMU. We're certainly open to labeling that differently if that's the court's preference. Otherwise, I was just going to move that in through Mr. Stevens.
Okay. Yeah, I actually did not notice that one. I'll apologize for that, but I have the email here, so.
Excuse me, Judge, is this on the record? I just want to be sure. Sometimes you don't.
Yes,
I have it so far.
Oh, you have it so
sometimes
far.
you-
Yes, good.
Okay, I just want to be sure.
Sure. Yeah, let me just check that. Yeah, okay. So it's just the response to discovery. It looks like it says partial. Yeah, so if all parties agree, I can add that to the list.
I will then move that in through Mr. Stevens as a 4th exhibit.
Okay, perfect.
And we will file it.
Yes, okay. Any other corrections to the list from anyone else?
Not a correction, Your Honor, but commission staff wishes to offer some responses to its data, all of the responses to its data requests as an exhibit, and it will file that exhibit shortly after the hearing.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I missed that one.
It hasn't been posted yet.
Yes, I would have put in the pending designation if I'd remembered to do that, but it's okay. All right, so we got those. Anyone else? Corrections?
Your Honor, I would like to be heard on 1 or 2 of the proposed changes or strike throughs.
Yeah, we're not there yet, but yes.
Sorry, thank you.
Okay.
I don't know that maybe it's in here and I just missed it. I apologize. And I don't know that any have been received, but if there are public comments, do we need a placeholder for those as well, or?
Okay, well, I mentioned in the beginning, there are no public comments yet.
Okay, yep.
And yeah, I mean, we'll just follow through with the process here. If there are more than 5, we'll make the exhibit.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for
Your Honor, this is Mike Long. I'm unable to see the comments in the column to the right. And I don't know if it's my screen or if it's yours, but I think there's some directions regarding some corrective measures that need to be made.
Yes, did you get my email yesterday? You should have the files.
Yeah, I do.
So on the screen, I do have them displayed.
Okay. Oh, I see them. All right.
Okay. Oh, and then they pop up. Yeah, I just can't make it much bigger. So basically they are, oh yes, so these are one substantive change. Rest are filing requirement issues. So there is the issue with rebuttal.
Yeah.
Do you understand that?
You're saying there's an issue, the citation to the LinkedIn page of
Mhm.
one of the executives of Charter is unacceptable?
That's correct. That's
Okay,
right. So if that's a fact that Aerocast can stipulate to, that's fine. I won't rely on LinkedIn for a fact, especially the way I looked it up and I just don't see, that it's a verifiable source. So yeah, I'm not going to let that into the record.
and Your Honor, the only reason I put that in there was that it was the personal LinkedIn page of the CEO of the Charter Manufacturing.
As it appears, yeah, but we don't know for sure. So,
Okay.
we can get to, why don't we just take that first then? So in terms of the comments here, did Aerocast have anything to say about this? Would they stipulate to those facts?
Yeah, Your Honor, we're not able to stipulate, so I'm not trying to be obstreperous here or have a fight with Mr. Long. I just don't know the basis for it. I don't have at my disposal at this point those facts. We're unable to stipulate.
Okay, yeah. So let's just refile it with those lines blacked out, so you can remain the pagination remains the same.
Okay.
So at this point, we'll move on to, I think the other comments only, well, we'll start with Aerocast filings. I think they were something to say there. So why don't you go ahead, Attorney Callisto, with your comments on on my comments.
Yeah, Your Honor, it's your suggested deletion of testimony in Aerocast, Bonner's testimony, and then in some of the responsive testimony from SMU on the issue of operating expenses. I note that this was an issue that was in the last rate case, and the court at that point did not take any concern with it. The information we put in Bonner Direct, I think, is a fair representation of what the American Foundry Society has said about operating expenses. And then our response was simply using our own electric costs to indicate that our electric costs were substantially more than what the operating expenses were of the average foundry in the country. And then, of course, electric expenses are part of operating expenses. So I think there was a foundation laid in the very testimony itself. We did have some back and forth. I don't know if there's anything there that's not admissible. In terms of probative value, I would ask the court to leave it in and let the commission itself decide the probative value of that.
Okay. Any response, comments from any other parties, commission staff? No. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I'm sympathetic. This comes late, and I know that the parties, SMU, did respond. I checked the docket from last case, the 111 case, and at least in terms of the filings, I didn't look at the transcript, but in terms of the filings, there's a similar passage, assertion made. I believe it was by Bonner, it was by Aerocast. And I didn't see any responsive testimony to that. It's also been included in Aerocast. Well, similar assertions were included in Aerocast's comments when it appeared in prior cases as a member of the public. And so just want to distinguish. So as a member of the public, there's no problem with this, an assertion like this. The standards of veracity are lower, I guess. The standard of evidence is lower on a public comment. But in the last case, I did let it in. May have been an oversight. That's probably on me. It also wasn't responded to, so it may have just slipped through. But I did look at the responsive testimony to this, and it does criticize the basis for the statement that witness Bonner made. I just wanted to note that in a prior case, I believe it's the the dockets we label as TE that dealt with parallel generation tariffs that we dealt with this summer. There was a similar kind of testimony was offered by one of the witnesses where they were citing to a study that was done, and they introduced what looked like part of the study. And I had time at that point to have the party bring in a witness that could verify the study and explain the methodology behind it. This time I did not have that kind of time prior to the hearing to warn the parties or get them to prepare some additional evidence to provide a foundation. This kind of seems like the same idea, just this, it's a statement, it just is according to American Foundation Society. Doesn't really cite where it's getting that from, what the method was to obtain that information, what the average, what they're averaging. So in terms of electricity and fuel cost, you know, what costs were they, which foundries were they? There's a lot of background information that would be necessary to actually get an accurate comparison. And I think that sort of, and in addition to whether these foundries are comparable. So just to make that comparison, there should be a lot more background information, or at least a study, a document that could show me what's behind the comparison. So without that, I don't think the statement is reliable. I'm not saying the witness is being untruthful. I'm just saying it's hard to know whether we can rely on that statement or not. And you know, and the witness doesn't even explain these things. So not given the history, this is accepted before, and in public comments, it was accepted as well. And given the situation, there's no motion to strike this, and that there's responsive testimony that criticizes this statement. I can let it in. I would, though, caution in the future that we'd want to have, I won't accept it next time if I can catch it. And the idea is that, you know, we just can't make statements like according to someone and just throw out numbers. We want to, we need to get the basis for that. And that's pretty much all I need to say on that. So I can allow that testimony in, and the responsive testimony, I guess the responsive and subsequent filings related to that assertion. But I did want to flag that as problematic for the future.
Thank you. And going forward, we'll make sure we have sufficient documentation on those kinds of statements.
All right. Did you have other questions about the comments? I think there was some.
No, Your Honor. The only other issue I would just note, and I would certainly catch it on the request for Stevens direct to strike a footnote. I believe you're referring to footnote 1 on page 3 of Stevens direct, not footnote 3.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So no comments on the ruling there.
Nothing else on the other requests.
Okay, great. Thanks. All right. I think there are some comments with SMU, so I'll provide an opportunity to address those.
So thank you, Your Honor. Two issues. One is really just more of a question. So you request that Mr. Knapp explain the basis for his statement that, in his view, Aerocast is not paying for the cost of operating the utility. He's prepared to do that, but I didn't know how you wanted us to do that, just in live testimony.
Let me check that. That was his. I'm not there yet. Is it on his direct? No.
I have it up on mine. I'll just switch over.
I do. So, okay, not sure.
It is the rebuttal. It's in a larger comment that first discusses the making changes to reflect the Bonner strike, which I understand is not going to be required now. But then there's a later question where you reference a page number
Yes.
and asked him to explain the basis for his example. And I assume you would prefer he just do that today.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Anything else?
The other one, you were concerned with the statement Mr. Unke made in his rebuttal regarding the WEPCO rate comparisons. And similarly ask him to explain what he means to say there.
Mhm.
And the point of the testimony is, in Mr. Unke's opinion, any utility, including WEPCO, wouldn't purposefully offer a rate that sells power at a loss. That's what he's trying to say.
That's what I was thinking he was saying, but I just need him to modify that if he can and be clear that he's not speaking for WEPCO.
And would you like us to edit the testimony in that regard or have him clarify that today?
No, just clarifying the stand.
Very good. Everything else we understood and will correct. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other questions on the more substantive comments? Okay, all right. Looks like we're good to go then. So before we get started, I've not, I haven't retained in my mind who we have cross for or no cross for.
Your Honor, my apologies. This is Eric Callisto. There's one more thing. You had attached an older rate case order.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. I'm sorry. Yeah, we probably, well, let's just get through if there, I do want to address that. Let's just see if there are witnesses we don't have cross for and can accept through affidavit, accept their filings by affidavit. So
I believe we were the only, go ahead.
Oh, I believe that's the case for Mr. Singletary.
okay. So no cross for Singletary at this time. Anyone else? Well, I think applicant, any cross for the applicant witnesses?
No, but they both have those issues to clarify we just discussed.
Arrowcast, I'm sorry, Arrowcast witnesses.
There's no cross for Mr. Bonner, but since he's here I'd just rather have him do it right now.
That's fine. Oh, and what about Stevens?
He has a couple of minor corrections to his testimony, just correcting typos, et cetera. So we'll do that on the stand.
Okay.
There's cross up.
Little Rapids, any cross for Bogan shoots?
No, Your Honor.
No. And staff wishes to appear with the witnesses. They wish to take the stand.
Mr. Field has no cross, but we can verify his testimony.
Okay. You want to verify live? So, well, we'll just let them. They're here, so that's fine. All right. So yes. So I just wanted to double check with Wisconsin Paper Council. Anyone appearing for Wisconsin Paper Council at this time? No. Okay. Well, we were not going to accept that testimony. Failure to appear. And yes, let's get to the final decision I attached to the witness list. So that's the final decision in 5350 ER 107. It's a prior rate case for Shawano. Whoops, wow, that's big. And I'm gonna offer that as an exhibit. Reason being is that that not come through. Reason being is it's not on the public-facing IRF system anymore. I think there's some value to it, or at least I wanted to raise whether there's value to it, and it's just being very slow to load here. But actually, I'm going to show it a different way. It might be easier. So the pertinent part of the order that I wanted to raise with parties and staff It's at page 7 of the final decision. And it talks about the reasoning behind the rate design, and that was approved in that case. In particular, the changes to the percent change in authorized rates. And so, quoting the order, it looked like it doesn't actually say this, but it seems to appear that the commission accepted, at least to some extent, Aerocast's recommendation. And it says Aerocast recommended that more costs be shared to other utility customers to reduce the dependency of the applicant on one rate class or customer. So there seemed to be some argument there that costs to Aerocast should be spread over other customer classes. And what happened in terms of the percent change that was authorized is very little was authorized for the CP4 class, of 0.02% increase, whereas all the other classes received, well, almost all of them, well, all the other received more. Most of them received at least 1% increase. So I just, this came out of the fact that parties keep talking about a 6-year, what they're calling a cross subsidy between the classes that was authorized in rates. This docket, and I can't get the date here, it's not showing up, but it does go, I think it might be 20, it's in the 2000s, I believe. It goes much further. So I wanted to point that out, that there was at some point a rationale for showing this distinction between classes, and it was authorized in rates prior to the 109 case, which parties are citing as sort of the beginning of this problem. There's also the 108 case, which now that final decision is available, publicly available on IRF. So I didn't introduce that as an exhibit because it can be found on our website. But here it talks about the next case and the next percent of this. It shows revenue increase. I copied that out of the order, but also the same comparative income statement, the changes in rates. But what's interesting about this case on page 11 of the 108 case, it says that in order to reflect the balance between the COSS results presented by the commission staff and Aerocast, the commission finds it reasonable to modify the commission staff's proposed revenue allocation to provide the following approximate rate increases at a 6.25% return on rate base. And it shows what the changes are, giving a 1%, 1% increase to CP4 and the same or larger increases to the other classes. So, there's some history here where there was a basis in terms of cost of service that the commission found to be persuasive or to form a basis of its rate design, and it did accept at least the range in terms of using the Aerocast costs and including that in the range of reasonable costs. So that goes back, again, further than the 109 case, I believe. So in terms of the witnesses here, I believe witness Knapp had participated in the 107 case and the 108 case. I know that witness Singletary was the commission staff cost of service study witness for the 108 case and may have knowledge of the 107 case, the background when preparing the 108 case. So I just wanted to raise these as some history going back further than 109. And if parties wish to comment on that, they may do so. But I thought it was useful to have that background here, that this issue may go back further than the 109 case. Now I know there may be other situations that have changed between those cases. For example, I think there are 2 customers in the CP4 class. Now there's 1. There may be other issues in terms of which I'm really not familiar with, but I know at this point it seems that what I've seen in testimony is that the utility is metering the Aerocast energy, what it's receiving in terms of purchase power from wholesale purchase power from Shawano. So I don't know if that situation has changed in terms of the metering, the exact amount of energy, because that doesn't seem to be in dispute anymore. But before, Aerocast was filing its own cost of service study, so I'm not sure why there's a difference in those cases. But so there are differences, but I just wanted to make sure we had all of the background here, because it appears to me that setting up the situation we have here today goes further back than the 108, well, the 109 case, sorry. So that's all I have to say about that. I don't know if anyone has a comment.
Your Honor,
Yes.
this is Jeff. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Justin.
who's that? Justin?
So certainly I don't have any objection to a party desiring to cite to a commission order. We should all be allowed to do that.
Your audio is not working. Sorry.
All right. So that, is it not good? Camera helps. Is it any better?
It's
I will
better
call
now.
in.
Without your video, it's better. Yes.
Okay.
But we need your video on.
Well,
So,
next opportunity I get, I'll call in to have that audio if that's better. If we're going to continue to have a connectivity issue.
let's go off the record and do that.
All right.
Oh, you probably can't hear me. So I don't know if you can hear me, Justin, but if you're looking at the phone number on the notice to dial in, there's an extra 2 at the end of the phone number. So don't dial the extra 2.
I'm calling the number on that Zoom is telling me, but the meeting number isn't working. So I'll try the notice shortly. And I apologize.
While we're off the record, I do see a hand up from Witness Knapp. I don't know if you are indicating what you're indicating.
Your Honor, I do have a comment on those 2 earlier cases. You asked some questions about the circumstances, the number of customers, and the metering capabilities.
Okay,
And
so what I'll do is
clarifications on-
I'll have you, it's maybe a little difficult to do on Zoom, but when you take the stand, if you do want to comment on those orders, you may. You might want to consult with your attorney first, but
Your Honor,
Yes.
Witness Singletary will also be providing some historical context as supplemental direct.
okay, great, thanks. Okay, I think we have witness Chasko's phone connected. Need to press *6 to unmute, and then you want to, yeah, you're muted. I don't think you're muted. I think you're muted on your phone still. So *6 to unmute.
Okay. All right, how's that?
All right, it's better. Can you bring that phone closer to you so we can just hear you
Yep.
clearly? Okay.
All right, well, again, I apologize for that and for keeping everyone waiting.
That's fine.
I may hit the same thing.
Okay, so while we're off the record, just wanted you to know that witness Knapp did indicate he would like to make a comment on the those old orders when he takes a stand. So you may want to consult with him about that. But so on the record, did you have a statement?
Yeah, so a brief bit of context, and then may address what Mr. Knapp wanted to say, and then a question to follow. So in the last rate case, Mr. Knapp explained much more significantly how the rate became broken, is the phrase he used. And it does not relate, I believe, to the 107 and 108. And what you were citing to, Your Honor, was what I think was just a more traditional, you got multiple cost of service studies, and the commission said it's going to consider both of them. But Mr. Knapp's testimony in the last case was that something mechanically was broken in the 109 that, in his view, and I don't believe was really contested, led to an accidental subsidy. And so, we feel no need to go back further than 109. And I don't believe anybody in this case debates that all of the cost of services show significant deficiencies. They have some differences as to the extent of which, but if somebody does desire to cite that 107 as you've interpreted it, we may want to cite testimony, and I don't know if that's permitted or not, from those to give further context to that history from a previous case. And if we're not allowed to do it, we're not allowed to do it. But there is a backstory that does not show up in the 107 and 108 cases and has not been contested in this case.
Right. Okay, well, let's handle it this way. We'll put on hold the offer of the, and really, you can always cite to a commission order. It's just that it's not available on IRF, so I wanted to put it in as an exhibit. But I'll hold off on that and just hear from, it seems like we have at least witness Knapp and witness Singletary willing to offer some background. And I think if we just focused on the question of why do parties assert that there's been a 6-year break, in quotes, to the rate rather than going further back, where if you're looking at the language of the orders, and they're not very specific to that question, but it seems like the language of orders that occur before that may have set up some sort of difference in those rates that the commission, found reasonable. If there's something that, if there's something significant in that 6-year period that witnesses can just explain, that may clear up this issue and allow us not to pursue the case further back into the history of these orders. But so let's leave it at that. I think the witnesses are willing to do that, so I'd appreciate it.
Your Honor, may I be heard on this?
Yeah.
Thank you. So as Mr. Chasko addressed it, I think, and as you have acknowledged, that anybody can cite to a commission order in a brief for whatever purpose they feel that order supports. I don't know where the testimony is going to go here from Mr. Singletary or Mr. Knapp, but from a process perspective, what I think they both intend to testify to is not necessarily appropriate sir rebuttal, because it's not in response to the last round of testimony. It's in response to something that's been raised here for the first time at this hearing today. And so I object to it because we are not in a position necessarily to respond to that with the witness we have available. If in fact that process could even, it could actually be helpful to my client. So at my own peril, do I raise this concern? But we're just not in a position to respond the same way that Mr. Knapp is, and apparently Mr. Singletary is, because our witness was not involved with the case at that time. So I object to taking testimony on this in that regard.
Okay. Any opinion, commission staff have any opinion on this? Whether this testimony would be useful or not? Okay, well, I guess, yes, this does create a little bit of a snafu here with timing. I recognize that. So
I mean, if it helps, Your Honor.
I apologize. I'm going back to the wrong
yeah,
audio source. Shawano would be fine not providing that additional testimony. Of course, if you have questions, we want to answer those. But in our view, the record shows the parties essentially agree as to the deficiency, and the only question is, whether there's a policy reason to do something else.
All right, that's fine. Okay.
Cub is on this. Cub. Oh, pardon me, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Cub is on the same page as SMU with respect to that. If it would provide historical context or color, but we're certainly not presenting Mr. Singletary's testimony as sir rebuttal. It would just, we don't feel it is, critical, but we're happy to provide it.
All right, that's fine. Yeah, especially if Aircast is willing to forego that. I think it may have tended to favor, depending on how you read those orders, maybe it would show something more of a justification for their position. Not that that's what I was intending to do. It's just that's how it plays out. If they're willing to forego that, then that's fine. But yeah, if parties don't want to pursue the history, that's fine. I guess it was a question that was raised in my mind. And so the questions would be coming from me. So I don't know if I don't think the rounds of testimony rules really apply when I'm asking questions, but I think that in order to we at least want to have witnesses that can answer those questions available. So that's important. So yeah, we'll just forego that. I don't know if, I believe the 107 case is available on Westlaw. If parties can't find it and need a copy, I can send it to you. But at this point, I won't be offering it as an exhibit. So let's just move on. And hopefully no commissioners will ask me why. What do you mean only 6 years? That can't be. So let's see. I think we're good for our witnesses. So why don't we start with our first witness from the applicant?
The applicants will call Brian Knapp.
Okay, I saw you there before. There you are. All right, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, Your Honor.
All right, great. Go ahead.
Morning, Mr. Knapp. Could you please state your name for the record?
Brian D. Knapp.
And did you prepare and cause to be filed testimony and exhibits in this proceeding?
I did.
Do you have any corrections to that testimony?
There is one error in my rebuttal testimony on page 10, line 18. At the time, I believed it was factual where I state that the rating of A- is only the median of regulated utilities in North America. That was based on information I had that was outdated as of late summer of this year. And the median of all regulated utilities in North America, the median rating from S&P, that is now a BBB plus.
Thank you. Other than that correction, is your filed testimony and exhibits true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
And Judge Newmark requested additional explanation with regard to your rebuttal testimony. Part of that testimony, you testified that Aerocast is not paying the cost to procure wholesale power on its behalf. Can you explain the basis for that statement?
Yes, there were a number of statements in that citation from Judge Newmark. Let's see, I'm finding where I say if he's commenting on or questioning the comment that I say Aerocast does not pay for any of the costs of operating or maintaining the utility. I address that later in my rebuttal on page 9, 12 through 19. Where I explain that the cost of purchasing power, the cost of the power necessary to supply Aerocast load is greater than the revenues that we receive from our sales of that power to Aerocast. And therefore, we're not even covering our cost of power. Therefore, there's no margin remaining. In fact, it's a deficit margin to cover the cost of our operating expenses, whether it's general O&M, depreciation, or taxes. There's just there's nothing there. They're not contributing with the current rate structure. They're not contributing to the cost of operating the utility. They're not even contributing to the full cost of buying their power. That's the basis for that statement. There are other statements in there about, whether or not we were to, like they're not contributing towards somebody being on call or somebody being available to repair their service line when it goes down, but I'm not sure that that's what he was referring to.
Yeah, let's just go off the record for a second. So where's the comment that I made that's the basis of this question? I just want to make
You need to go to
Apologize. I think you need to go to the next comment down.
There is a page citation in the comment that you're on now.
Oh, sorry.
That page citation, if you were, is page 16 actually of it, the previous final decision.
Right. In terms of the question, where's my comment that? So there's explain the basis of your example, right? That's not what we were talking about, right?
That's what we were just.
It was, okay, all right. So that was, what was particular about that? So, okay, let me just. Yeah, so I guess what I was particularly asking witness Knapp was when you're talking about the cost, and just paraphrasing your testimony at the bottom here, page 3, lines 19 to 23, you do list some examples that Aerocast, do not contribute to the cost of keeping 5 linemen at the ready to restore power to Aerocast when a lighting arrestor blows, or to switch power off at 5 p.m. I'm just curious, I mean, are those actual events that occurred, or are you just kind of just sort of, putting out instances where where Aerocast wouldn't be paying, as you assert, for these costs because it's not paying for its entire cost of service?
Your Honor, those are actual examples of numerous examples, but just 2 that were off the top of my head. Yeah.
Okay, so I was just curious if there were things that actually occurred, not just sort of proposed explanations of what you're talking about. All right, that's what I was getting at there. Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Okay, let's continue. Go ahead with any other supplemental direct.
I apologize. Are we on the record?
I hope so. Yes.
Yes, we are now.
Oh, I'm not sure we got that last piece.
Okay, where did we just get on the record, Lane?
We just got on the record when you, because you said off the record and then you were talking about everything. I'm sorry if I didn't hear on the record or anything like
Yeah, I
that.
don't think I said it then. Okay, so let's get back. So we're just explaining my question to witness Knapp that Attorney Chasko had asked of the witness. It's his Knapp rebuttal. Page 3, lines 19 through 23, and then it actually goes down through page 4, 1 through 4. And so witness Knapp had explained sort of generally what he meant in terms of what's considered the costs, the subsidy that Aerocast receives. And my question about that passage was more detailed in terms of the particular examples that witness Knapp was listing as costs that he believes Aerocast is not paying for, that they do not contribute to. So I just wanted to ask the witness whether those examples in that section of testimony are events that actually occurred, or were they merely exemplary theories about what types of costs he believes Aerocast is not contributing to. So could you just verify which one that is with Snap?
Yes, those are actual examples of several that I drew from in actual experience.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, so having recorded that, let's move on to the next question.
No, we have no additional questions. Mr. Knapp is available for cross-examination.
Okay, so do we have cross? We'd start using our service list. So I believe it would be Aerocast first.
No cross.
Okay, anyone else? No.
Your Honor.
Yes. Who's that?
This is Michael Long on behalf of Little Rapids.
Can you turn on your video, please?
Can you see me?
Yes.
All right. I have a cross-exam questions for Mr. Knapp.
All right.
All right. Mr. Knapp, in the prior testimony that you just offered, you discussed you shed some light on the operational costs associated with the operation of the utility. are the operational and maintenance costs that are those in addition to costs or cost of service, or are those embedded in the cost of service for each rate class?
Okay,
Those are,
I'm not sure if I understand which costs are we talking about?
Are the let me rephrase the question. Are the operational and maintenance costs incurred by SMU reflected in the cost of service study?
Is that not on the record? I'm not sure if that's, we don't have that on the record already. I mean, isn't that how cost of service is? Isn't that embedded in cost of service?
Your Honor, in some of the testimony, there's testimony that states that there's a loss that we're not covering, or that with the CP4 rate, SMU is not able to cover the cost of providing or purchasing the power. And then in addition to that, they say, in addition to that, that the CP4 rate does not contribute to operational and maintenance costs. And I'm just paraphrasing here. And what I want to know is, are those operational and maintenance costs included in the cost of service study, or are they separate from or outside the scope of a cost of service study?
Okay, I guess if you feel the need to verify that, go ahead. You can answer.
they are included in the cost of service study. The allocation of those costs to all customer classes is part of the cost of service study, and the deficit that, or the shortfall that we're reflecting with CP4 includes those non-power supply O&M and other expenses and costs.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Knapp. That's all I have.
All right. Any other cross? Okay, redirect.
None, thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you, witness Knapp. You're excused.
Thank you.
We'll call Mr. Tom Unke.
See you there. Great. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm? Tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Go ahead.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Thomas Unke, last name spelled U-N-K-E.
And Mr. Unke, did you prepare and cause to be filed testimony and exhibits in this matter?
Yes, I did.
And is the information in those testimony and exhibits true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, they are.
I believe you were present during the administrative matters at the beginning. The administrative law judge had a question related to your statement in your testimony where you state that WEPCO would not offer a rate that, I'll paraphrase, loses money from the beginning. Are you representing WEPCO in this matter?
No, I'm not. That was made as a general comment for general rate design theory, where most utilities would not generate a rate or create a rate to their retail rate customers that won't even cover their variable cost of power, and then on top of it offer more discounts. It wasn't aimed specifically at WEPCO.
Appreciate that clarification. I have no further questions. Mr. Unke is available for cross-examination.
All right. Any questions?
Not from our cast.
Okay. Anyone else?
One from Ken.
All right. Thanks very much. You're excused.
Thank you.
I don't know if I excused witness Knapp. He's excused too. And I just wanted to mention when when parties are introducing witnesses, if you could just list their testimony and exhibits for them to verify. So just, for example, like Unke filed direct rebuttal and one exhibit. Sometimes we miss things and a witness can correct us. It's happened more times than I'd like to admit to, but it does help to just make sure we nail down this record while we're here. Okay, so let's move on to Aerocast.
Your Honor, I do recognize now that I'm looking a little closer at your list, the Stevens in the testimony column rebuttal, that Stevens should be moved down because Mr. Bonner only submitted direct and sur rebuttal. There we go.
All right, great.
Thank you.
And they have the sur, not sur.
Aerocast calls Shane Bonner to the stand.
All right. Raise your right hand. That helps me find you. There we go. All right. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do, Your Honor.
All right. Go ahead.
Mr. Bonner, did you cause to be filed direct and sur rebuttal testimony and one exhibit in this case?
Yes,
And if asked those same questions, would you give the same answers today?
yes,
Do you have any changes or modifications to your testimony or exhibits?
no,
And is your testimony and exhibits true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
yes.
The witness is available for cross-examination.
All right. Any questions for witness Bonner? No. All right. Thanks very much. Well, let me just check my list in case I don't have any comments. No. Okay. No. No. All right. Thanks. Yes, you're excused.
Aerocast calls Robert Stevens to the stand.
All right. Witness Stevens, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
All right. Go ahead.
Mr. Stevens, did you cause to be filed direct rebuttal and sur rebuttal testimony and 3 exhibits in this case?
yes,
And are you sponsoring a 4th exhibit that was provided to the parties and to the court yesterday marked as Exhibit Aerocast Stevens 4?
yes,
And do you have any corrections or changes to your testimony?
I have a few very minor changes to my direct and sur rebuttal testimonies.
And what are those changes?
Beginning with my direct testimony on page 6. Line 13, the word rated appears near the end of the line. That should be rate, not rated. My second change is at page 10, line 14. There's a reference to CP4 rates. The word rates should be rate, singular. Page 13. Line 7, the word recoveries should be recovery, singular. In my sur rebuttal testimony, page 3, line 9, the word you is stated twice near the beginning of the line. The second you, Y-O-U, should be deleted. And at page 6, line 15, after the word dealt, the word with, W-I-T-H, should be inserted.
And with those changes, is your testimony and exhibits true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
The witness is available for cross-examination.
All right. So if you could just make sure to refile, including those changes. So that'll be the sur rebuttal as well. So I did want to mention, so our normal process is to have errata filed in, usually the day before the hearing. And there was plenty of time in this case, especially to get that in after the last filing of the sur rebuttal. So just appreciate it if we follow that. And that goes for everybody. I think applicant had that issue as well. Just gives people a chance to see that ahead of time. and it just avoids having to do this now. So let me just make the comment here. All right, so this witness is available, and I did want to mention, oh yeah, let me just ask for the record, any objections to Stevens 7?
Stevens 4, Your Honor.
Stevens 4, yes, you're right. Any objections to Stevens 4? No, okay.
No, Your Honor.
So we'll expect that in the time frame available for filing.
Judge, commission staff has no objections or cross, but before we proceed, I have a small matter that you might want to consider off the record.
Okay, just curious, is there any cross for Stevens?
I do have a couple short questions, Your Honor.
Okay, so Attorney Rogers, does this involve Stevens or can we wait?
Yes, I just wanted to point out for the court reporter that his name was misspelled on the Zoom, and I just want to avoid confusion in the transcript. By having that page.
Okay. All right, thanks. Well, oh yes, I see that.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's do. Let's do cross. So I believe it's witness Chasko.
Good morning, Mr. Stevens.
Attorney Chasko, go ahead.
Good morning.
Is it fair to say, at least generally, you do not object to Aerocast rates eventually moving toward the cost of service, but favor that be done gradually?
Yes.
And just really one question. If the cost of service studies show that Aerocast was entitled to an 11% decrease, would you also be arguing for that decrease to be implemented gradually?
Generally, rate shock and gradualism is associated with rate increases, not decreases. So it would depend, I guess, on the circumstances of that hypothetical and what's happening with other rate classes, but generally rate decreases are not a concern.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
All right, any other cross? Redirect?
No redirect.
All right. Thank you, witness Stevens. You're excused.
Thank you.
So I think we can continue on. Citizens Utility Board, did we want to take witness Singletary in person?
Yes, we'll call Mr. Corey Singletary to the stand.
All right. See you there. All right, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, go ahead.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Corey Singletary, Corey Singletary.
Did you prepare and cause to be filed direct testimony, rebuttal testimony, and exhibits 1 and 2?
Yes.
And is that testimony and the information contained in those exhibits true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
As I sit here today, yes.
Do you have anything to add to your testimony at this time?
I do not.
Okay, Mr. Singletary is available for cross-examination and questions.
Any cross? No. All right. Thanks very much. You're excused.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So Little Rapids is next.
Mr. Bogenschutz, are you there? Oh, okay.
Yes.
We'd like to.
Let's get off the record for a second, and I'm going to swear you in. So I'm hearing something kind of disturbing in the background there. It's not coming in very clearly. I don't know which of you that might be. Why don't we test out witness Bogen? Yeah, I think it's witness Bogenschutz's microphone there. So how is your connection? How are you providing audio there? Do you have a microphone you can adjust or get closer to, perhaps?
How's that?
Not much of a difference there. There's like a hiss or a whine coming through. I don't know if it's maybe the microphone's close to like a fan or something. It seems like
No, there's no. Let me go on my computer. How's that?
it's better. It's a little low. If you could just get closer to the computer, maybe that would be helpful.
Is that better?
Yes, significantly better. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
All right, let me
Apologize.
swear you in. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm? Tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. Okay, go ahead.
Can you state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Sure. It's Michael Bogenschutz, Bogenschutz.
And Mr. Bogenschutz, did you offer direct rebuttal and surrebuttal testimony in this matter?
Yes, I did.
And do you have any changes that you want to offer to your testimony?
No,
And is the direct rebuttal and surrebuttal testimony that you've offered in this matter true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
yes, it is.
I have no further questions. I'll offer the witness now for cross-exam.
Okay, any questions? No, lots of shaking heads. Okay, perfect. All right, thank you very much. You're excused.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's Wisconsin Paper Council's turn. Just want to make sure we don't have anyone from Paper Council connected. All right, so we'll move on to commission staff. We can call our first witness.
Commission staff calls Justin Adams.
See you there. Raise your right hand.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes, coming in nice. Do you swear or affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Justin Adams.
What is your position at the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin?
I am a financial analyst.
Okay, and how were you involved in this docket?
I filed direct testimony.
Thank you. I'm sorry, are the statements and representations in your testimony true and correct other than the missing reference to the PSC ref number that Judge Newmark pointed out in
Yes,
his?
they are.
Thank you. Do you have any additions or modifications to your testimony at this time?
I do not.
Your Honor, the witness is available for cross.
Okay, any questions for witness Adams?
I do have some questions if no one else does.
Yeah, go ahead. You can go first. Yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Adams. Just a few questions about the rate of return on the net investment rate base. You describe in your testimony that commission staff has a benchmark return for municipal utilities. And I think I understood, at least at the time of your testimony, that benchmark was 6.2%. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct as of, I think I have a note of like October 11th.
Do you know what that benchmark would be today or most recently if you've calculated it since then?
I don't have it in front of me, but it's higher than 6.2. I think somewhere around 6.5 or 6.6 now.
And do you have an expectation that that benchmark will continue to increase in the near future?
I don't know if I have a real expectation of anything at this point. I don't know which way it's going to go.
It's tied in any way to the Fed interest rate moves that have been happening this year?
Yes, the benchmark is tied to the changes in the interest rates.
And so if the Fed continues to increase the base interest rates, and I'm sure I'm not using the correct technical term, but the benchmark will continue to increase. Is that correct?
Yes, theoretically, that's correct.
Have you reviewed Mr. Knapp's Exhibit 1?
I believe I have. I don't have it up in front of me.
I'll wait. As I don't know that we'll need to refer to it, but we may, Your Honor.
Do I have it up on the screen correctly?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Does that exhibit accurately reflect a number of staff adjustments and other municipal rate cases from this summer, or this year, I should say?
I believe so, given that it was, letterheaded as a revenue requirement letter from the commission.
And do those letters indicate that for at least those utilities offered by Mr. Knapp, commission staff used the benchmark rate of 6%?
Without going through each one of these in detail, I'm assuming that that is true.
Your Honor, are we considering these letters from other cases in this docket?
They've been admitted, and they've been admitted without objection.
Yeah, it's evidence in this case that's been established already.
Okay, thank you.
Why wasn't Shawano given the benefit of an updated benchmark rate?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean with that question.
Well, in your testimony, you described staff's proposed revenue requirement as based off of 5.0 rate of return.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Why didn't you use the benchmark at the time you filed your testimony?
So I believe in my testimony, and I again don't have my testimony up here, but I believe there's an explanation of how we compute the benchmark as well as the floor. And basically where my analysis ended was the requested rate of return was between those two markers. So it was an acceptable rate of return based on the analysis.
And are you aware that Mr. Knapp filed a document on IRF requesting that staff use the updated benchmark this summer?
I am, yes.
And but you didn't consider that the utility request?
I considered it. It had no bearing on the analysis, so it was just information for the record that the commission can consider. Bear with me. I'm just trying to understand what you just described. Sure.
So essentially, staff used 5% because that's what was requested in the initial rate filing. Is that correct?
In the initial what? Sorry.
Rate filing.
Okay.
Yeah, so 5%, it was really two things. It was the analysis of Shawano's financials as well as what was requested in the initial application.
And is the financial analysis, is that what you described in your testimony as relating to interest coverage and debt coverage?
Yes.
So let me interrupt here. I'm looking at a page 4 of direct. Does that explain the process we're talking about? I just want to make sure we have a tying this to testimony that the commission can refer to when it gets the record.
Is that question directed at me?
Yeah, sure. If I know you mentioned there was calculating the floor.
Yes.
Yeah, so that, I mean, when you're talking about the commission's process, we're looking at page 4 of your direct.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks. Okay, proceed.
As I understand your testimony, you have a benchmark as you described in your testimony, and but you don't always use that benchmark. One factor you consider is what the utility asks for.
What they ask for and what the analysis of their financials yields.
And with respect to what the utility asks for, at least in the Shawano case, you use what they asked for in the initial rate filing, not giving credence to a request to update that in the summer. Is that correct?
I guess I would parse it a little differently. So I reviewed what was requested and determined that it had no bearing on the financial analysis that I did. So it was additional information the commission could consider.
And the financial analysis that you conducted is described in your testimony at page 4.
Yes, the process for determining the floor and the benchmark, yes, is described there.
All right. I apologize, Your Honor. I'm going to turn back to Exhibit 1.
Sure.
So when you use something lower than the benchmark, well, let me strike that. I apologize. Do utilities who receive the benefit of the benchmark, do they only receive that if their financial metrics require it?
I would say there could be other considerations in there. I mean, we have an audit staff that also goes through this, so I don't know what other things they're considered in audit's review of this. But generally speaking, yeah, if they have no debt, or if they have debt and there's a reason for servicing that debt, the benchmark would largely be more of a consideration than it was in this case.
So we'll just explore a little bit the New Richmond and Wisconsin Dells examples that are in the exhibit. We'll start with the first one that I think the judge has up on the screen. It appears from that letter that originally the city of New Richmond requested less than the benchmark. Is that accurate?
Having not read the letter right now, I'm taking it at face value of what you're saying is yes, that's probably the case.
Objection, foundation. Your Honor, this witness does not have a basis to testify about what was done by other analysts on other rate cases.
Well, he does testify actually extensively in his testimony about commission staff policies and preferences that presumably are uniform across cases.
Judge, I would agree with Attorney Callisto's objection. I'm uncomfortable with Mr. Adams being required to testify as to specific cases which he was not involved in. He can speak to commission practices generally based on his own experience, but this goes a little too far for my comfort.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, if he doesn't know the answer, he doesn't know the answer.
That's yes. He can always say he doesn't know. He can speak to his own knowledge, and to the extent he knows it, commission staff's long-standing internal practice.
So what I'm really trying to get at is, it appears to Mr. Knapp, as he testified, that several other utilities were given the benefit of the benchmark, even though they didn't ask for it in their initial filing. Is that accurate?
I would say that, just generally speaking, that, yeah, it's not uncommon for utilities to be given an above requested return if there are financial reasons for doing so.
And one of the reasons may be interest rates have changed and therefore the benchmark has risen.
Potentially, yes.
And well, our question is simply, why wasn't that same treatment accorded to Shawano?
Because in this case, there was no reason from the financial analysis to inflate the return. So when Mr. Knapp requested that, staff stayed silent on it because it's information for the record for the commission to consider.
And okay, I understand. I appreciate that explanation. We just want to discuss that a little further. But is it the case that a utility would only get the benchmark if its minimum financial criteria that you describe in your testimony require it?
Okay, can you repeat that question? I'm not sure I fully got it all.
I'll try a slightly different way of stating it. And I can give an example of the city of New Richmond. and if you don't know, you don't know, but just we'll use it as a hypothetical.
Yeah.
The way I read that letter is Mr. New Richmond didn't ask for the benchmark, but because interest rates rose, staff gave it to them when they did their revenue requirement. And so my question is, does the city of New Richmond, did it require a 6.0 return to have a 1.5 times interest coverage?
I don't recall off the top of my head.
And that's one of the metrics you use when reviewing revenue requirements. Yeah.
Generally speaking.
And the other you mentioned in your testimony.
I'm sorry. I have the question, and that's one of the metrics you use when reviewing revenue requirement. That's
required returns.
Okay, before we get back, Attorney Chasko, can you get your phone closer to your mouth? I think you're just kind of fading a little bit there. There we go.
Is that any better?
Yes, I think so. Okay, let's get back on.
So similarly, the other metric you mentioned is a 1.25 times total debt service coverage. Is that right?
Yes, I believe so.
And do you know whether the city of New Richmond required a 6.0 return to meet that minimum metric?
I don't know off the top of my head.
So is it true that staff sometimes gives utilities a benchmark return, even if the minimum metrics don't absolutely require it?
I don't know exactly if I can answer that. I think there's probably a long list of cases I've not been involved with where there may or may not happen. I don't know if nothing's coming to mind right now as an example that I can point to.
Well, it's with respect to your review in this case, were you looking at anything else other than these two metrics you described in your testimony?
As related to the rate of return specifically?
Correct. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say no. There was nothing beyond these two metrics that was really considered, as far as the analysis is concerned.
And so the way you reviewed it, unless Shawano needed an additional return to meet those two minimum requirements, it was not going to be given.
Yes, based on what they, based on what they had filed in their application.
Bear with me. I'm just. Should Shawano receive a lower return on its investment because it currently has no debt?
Should it receive a lower return than
other utilities, other municipal utilities?
It should not receive a return lower than the floor based on not having debt, but otherwise it'd be on a case-by-case basis. I don't know if I can answer that specifically.
Are you aware that Shawano is going to need debt financing in the near future to construct its new headquarters?
I'm not aware of that, no.
And generally speaking, would you agree that it's likely that cost of debt will increase in the near future?
If the interest rates stay high, then yes, borrowing costs will increase.
And then my final question is, I understand you made a proposal and you expressed some, but would you proposed 5.0, but would it also be reasonable for Shawano to have the benefit of the benchmark rate for municipal utilities?
If the commission chooses to award them a higher one.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that, Mr. Adams. That's all I have.
Your Honor, brief cross.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Adams, based upon the back and forth you've had with the SMU attorney, does that change your position that a 5.0 rate of return is appropriate for SMU?
No, it does not.
No further questions.
All right. Other cross? Okay, so yeah, that's fine. All right, so redirect.
Mr. Adams, before Attorney Chasko mentioned the new headquarters project, had you heard about any? Had you heard about that before Mr. Chasko mentioned it?
I'm sorry, you're cutting out.
I'm sorry. Mr. Adams, had you learned or heard of the new headquarters project that Mr. Chasko mentioned previously to today's hearing?
Well, I
No.
don't think he answered. Okay. And he didn't answer that question, so it's not, I don't think that's not evidence. Is it provided anywhere else in the record that there's a project of that kind?
If you're asking me, I wanted to clarify that point.
Okay.
And I don't need to ask the question.
Yeah, I think he said he didn't know, so.
You're right. It was asked and answered. Okay, I have no redirect.
Okay, that's fine then. So thanks very much. You're excused.
Thank you.
All right, next witness.
Commission staff calls Tanner Blair.
Okay. There you are. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Mr. Blair, will you please state your name for the record?
Tanner Blair.
What is your position at the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin?
I'm employed as director of the Bureau of Rates and Finance.
And how are you involved in this docket?
I served as a witness where I provided direct testimony in 2 exhibits, Blair 1 and Blair 2.
And are the statements and representations in your testimony and exhibits true and correct?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Do you have any additions or modifications to your testimony or exhibits at this time?
I do not.
Thank you. Your Honor, the witness is available for cross.
Questions for the witness?
Just a couple of questions, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead. If you can hold.
Good morning, Mr. Blair.
Can you hold your phone up?
Good morning, Mr. Blair. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Just a couple questions about the CP4 rate and cost allocation. In your experience, how common is it for a rate not to recover even the cost to procure wholesale power?
I can't say that I've ever done that specific analysis where I've tried to provide that description. So I don't know.
Can you think of any other examples where that's been the case?
I cannot.
I understand you proposed using gradualism to mitigate the rate increase for the CP4 class. I assume, given that's in your testimony, you think that is a reasonable approach?
Yes.
In your opinion, would it also be reasonable to entirely close the rate subsidy in this case?
I think the commission could find that to be a reasonable determination in this rate case.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
Other cross?
Yes, Your Honor, just one question or two. Mr. Blair, Eric Callisto on behalf of Arrowcast. Based upon the exchange you just had with Mr. Chesko, is it still your position that your recommended allocations in this case are appropriate?
That is still true.
No further questions.
Other cross? Redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Okay, you're excused. Thanks.
Commission staff, I'm sorry, Judge, are you ready for the next witness?
Oh, yes.
Commission staff calls Andrew Field to the stand.
Okay, see you there. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm? Tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, go ahead.
Please state your name for the record.
Andrew Field.
What is your position at the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin?
I am a public utility auditor.
And how were you involved in this docket?
I submitted direct PSC field and exhibit PSC field 1.
Thank you. Are the statements and representations in the testimony and exhibit that you filed in this case true and correct?
They are.
Do you have any additions or modifications to your testimony or exhibit at this time?
I do not.
Thank you. The witness is available for cross.
Any questions? Start with the applicant. No? Anyone else? All right. Thanks very much. You're excused.
Thank you.
Okay. It's all of our witnesses, I believe. And okay, we have all the filings now identified and verified. We will be expecting the Stevens 4 to come in, as well as the SMU application exhibit and the corrected filings that we've indicated already. Besides that, I did say I would make an opportunity for public comment at the end of the hearing. So if there's nothing else from parties, we can open this up to the public. Any members of the public in attendance now that wishes to speak? Okay, nobody there. So, all right. So I did want to just mention in terms of sound quality, I'm going to just remind everyone that the facilitating matters order does require that attorneys and witnesses, when witnesses are taking the stand, appear on the audio-visual connection over the internet. And I'm going, we did make some accommodations today, but I've been gotten complaints about sound quality on these hearings, and I want to make sure that in the future we're all prepared to connect with adequate sound quality. And I would encourage and I will expect parties to test their equipment out beforehand. That would probably go a long way to resolving some of these issues. And depending on the situation, we may just delay the case next time if we don't have good connections so that we can hear everything that's being said. So just wanted to encourage everyone to be mindful of that. And there will be increasingly worse consequences when connections aren't made. So at this point, I think we have everything. Anything else? All right, well, thanks very much, and we're adjourned.